Trigger warning. This video discusses topics that may be triggering to sensitive viewers, such as death, depression, and suicide. Viewer discretion is advised.
What's up, people? Joe Winko here, your favorite Hawaiian guy, and this is my first episode of my new series I'm going to be doing on YouTube called Deaths of Joe Winko. Yeah, so this is obviously going to be very morbid and very gloomy. Before I get to what I'm going to be talking about, I just want to give a trigger warning that I'm going to be discussing topics like death and suicide in this video. And I also want to assure all of you guys that I'm not currently suicidal myself. I'm not planning on killing myself or anything. I just wanted to talk about this again in one of my YouTube videos because it is something that happened. It is almost how my life ended. And the whole point of all my YouTube videos is for you guys to get to know me and what goes on inside my autism mind and the good and the bad parts of my life, honestly. This wasn't the first time that I tried suicide, but I wanted to talk about this in the first episode in Deaths of Joe Winko because
Because this specific suicide story of mine explains some major things about me. And it was also the start of a major story arc in my life. That's my best way of wording it and explaining it. A lot of other stuff continued after this suicide attempt.
Now, for those of you who don't know, I have autism, but I also suffer from ADHD and also type 1 diabetes and also a few other mental conditions that I was diagnosed with, which I don't really feel comfortable listing in a video, but those are the ones I'm going to tell you about: autism, ADHD, and also type 1 diabetes. All of those things affect me, and as much as I hate to admit this, I cannot hold a job because of my mental conditions and also because of my medical conditions, because my type 1 diabetes is pretty difficult to manage. You can do everything right with type 1 diabetes and things still go wrong. But because of all those conditions that I suffer from, I can't hold a job because of it. And a lot of people get really judgmental and bash me because of that. But I'm going to be explaining exactly why I can't in this episode of Deaths of Joe Winko. This first episode is going to be about the time I tried killing myself back when I was 18 years old in summer of 2014. I talked about this before in an episode of Joe Winko Talk a few years ago. But one major thing that I want to mention is that this was definitely not the first time I tried committing suicide. And this whole suicide story actually starts before 2014, all the way back to October of 2013. Because at that time, I was 17 years old in October of 2013, and I was a senior in high school. And I was living with my adoptive parents at the time in the state of Wisconsin, a state that I hate with a passion even back then, but would hate it even more in the years to come and still hate with a passion to this day.
This was actually before the times where I started saying that I didn't want to die in Wisconsin. I didn't care where I would die back then.
At that time, I was a senior in high school at my alternative high school that I went to for kids suffering with depression, autism, and other mental conditions, exactly like I do with my autism. And my adoptive mom is really controlling. She always has been extremely controlling. She's mellowed out nowadays. She's mellowed out because she doesn't really have that much control anymore. But back then, she was extremely controlling. She told me that she wanted me to get a job because I was 17, and she said, "Oh, yeah, it's time for you to grow up and be on your own." And at first, I never had a job before, and I was actually kind of excited to get a job, really. And I ended up getting a job at the shopping mall at a clothing store working retail. And I was really excited at first, but the first day of the job, I realized right away that it was not good. But the thing you have to realize is my adoptive mom is extremely persistent. She's really controlling. And after the first day, I was really mad. I was like, I don't want to do this. I absolutely hated that. That sucked horribly. But then she got all mad and she was telling me, "You have to get a job. You have to learn to work and everything." And oh, it was miserable, like right away, and it just kept getting more and more miserable as time went on. Now, they didn't really have me working that many hours at first. It was still miserable, but they didn't really have me working that many hours because I was still in high school. At my alternative high school, I was only going to school for 3 hours a day in the afternoon. And then I remember they would have me work a couple shifts a week. During the weekdays, it was 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. because I was 17. And, like, if you're over 18, they can keep you till midnight. But the whole entire time I was working this job, they always let me leave at 10 p.m. And during the weekends, I literally almost had to work every single weekend. And that was absolutely miserable because back when I was a kid, I always liked the weekends because I liked having a day to myself where I don't have to worry about anything. But when my adoptive mom made me get this retail job, that went away. And I don't think she realized how stressful that was for me. But over time, it kept wearing down on me. Another thing that I recently learned is that people with autism usually don't do very well with retail jobs because that can be really stressful having to approach people and everything. And at the stupid clothing store I was working at, they always tried convincing me to talk customers into opening up credit card accounts with the store and everything. And if you worked retail and and were constantly hounded about that, and we're trying to get random people trying to buy stuff and leave to open up credit card accounts for the store you're working at. I'm pretty sure anyone who had to work retail and deal with that will know that that's definitely not a fun thing at all, really, having to talk people into stuff like that. But especially with autism, because people with autism, and you have to remember, I was really young back then. I was 17, so I would tend to take stuff very literally. And it's difficult to explain, but for some reason, I thought it was important to get the people to open up the charge cards accounts and everything, because my manager was always, like, technically bitching at me about them. And for some reason, I thought it was really important, even though it really wasn't. But still, it was stressful, honestly, and I could not stand it at all. And as time went on, I got more and more miserable. And luckily, however, they cut my hours down. They ended up cutting me down to 10 hours a week. I'm not exactly sure exactly when that happened, but over time it eventually happened. I believe in summer of 2014, because my manager started to know that I had issues. Because while I was working the job, I always would hate it. Whenever I would come home, I would always complain to my adoptive parents about how much I hate it. And my adoptive mom, being the controlling BICTH that she is, would always tell me that I would have to keep the job, otherwise she would kick me out of the house and everything. And the thing was, I actually did turn 18 on December 5th, 2013. And I took that literally when she said that, honestly. And then I remember getting really depressed around that time. And I started thinking, this is what I stayed alive for this. I mean, because this wasn't the first time I tried suicide. And I just got really pissed off and really angry. And I'm like, this is how life is? Because that's another thing that everyone would tell me. They would say, oh, get used to it. That's how life is. And I'm like, this isn't what I want to stay alive for. Because I tried killing myself many times before this. And that's when the thought of suicide gradually started to creep back in my head in late 2013, early 2014, as I was working this horrible job and running into really bitchy and mean customers. And I mean, yeah, I know that mean customers at retail is a daily thing, but you have to remember, I was only 17 and 18 years old. So I would take stuff personally even back then. Like, I would take stuff personally. One thing that I always liked doing back then was I always would play video games a lot. And I don't do it so often anymore, but back when I was 17, 18, and 19, I used to play Grand Theft Auto Vice City because that's a game that I used to play back in kindergarten. I've been playing that game ever since kindergarten, and I'd always play it for the nostalgia and everything. Whenever I would get home from the retail job that my adoptive mom made me keep, I would always play Grand Theft Auto Vice City. Another thing was Grand Theft Auto Vice City was the whole reason why I started to like 80s music a lot because Grand Theft Auto Vice City takes place in year 1986. So whenever you steal a car and are driving around in the car, you always will hear 80s music playing on the radio, like real music that was actually from the 80s. And I was always fascinated by it because it had this like ghostly sound to it because of the recording quality of songs back then. My best way of explaining it. But one of the most haunting songs that I heard from Grand Theft Auto Vice City was Self Control by Laura Branigan. That song caught my attention because I remember hearing her sing that she lives among the creatures of the night. And I remember I got interested in that song back then and I read about that song and I read about the woman who sings that song. Her name was Laura Branigan and she was a singer who did a lot of music back in the 1980s. Laura Branigan died in her sleep on August 26, 2004 at age 52 from cerebral aneurysm. So her death wasn't a suicide at all, but I felt really sorry for her when I read that she died in her sleep. And every time I would play Grand Theft Auto Vice City after I was done working the horrible retail job that my adoptive mother made me keep, and whenever I would hear that song while I was playing Grand Theft Auto Vice City, even after, especially after reading about how Laura Branigan died in her sleep in August of 2004, that made it even more haunting, honestly, knowing that the singer of that song actually died in her sleep in August of 2004. And this is because of my autism mind, but it got me thinking, really, because this was all going on in 2013, 2014. I was still working the job that my adoptive mother made me keep. They cut my hours down because things started to not get very good while I was working the job. I started self-mutilation in year 2014, meaning that I started cutting my wrist. And the main reason for that was, well, yeah, it was because I was really angry and really upset. But the main reason for that is because I was planning on killing myself the whole entire time. Like by 2013, 2014, I was like, okay, if I can't quit this job, I'm going to kill myself because I'm miserable, I'm not happy, and I don't want to stay alive if I'm not happy. That was the that was my mindset back when I was 17 and 18. So I started cutting my wrist, And the thing was, I didn't want people to be surprised when they finally found out that I had died. I wanted them to like see it coming. So that's why I was cutting my wrist. And I made it very obvious. Like while I was working the job, I would wear short sleeves. You would see the cuts all over my wrist. They were fresh. I mean, they were scabbed up and everything, but they were fresh. I made sure everyone would see them. I would even like go like that to them. And one time I was helping a customer was checking out, and I was bagging up some of the shirts he bought, and one of the cuts that I did like before the I wouldn't cut myself at work. I would do it like before I would go there. Really, I did it at home, then I would go to work. One of the cuts that I did earlier actually split open and it started bleeding. And I didn't notice it right away, but he noticed it before I did. And as I was putting his stuff in the bag, he looked at me and he had this horrified expression on his face. And he was like, and I was like, what? And then I started feeling something warm trickling down my wrist. And then I would see the blood on my wrist. He literally screamed and ran out of there, ran out of the store, like freaked out, left everything behind. And I was just like, oh. And, the thing was, so many people saw those cuts on my wrists, but none of my coworkers ever said anything. My manager never said anything either. They just would just go like, my manager walked by because she heard the screaming and she saw the cuts on my wrist. She said, "Oh, Joe, just go to the bathroom and just dry yourself off." And that's exactly what I did. And I saw like the nervous look on her face because she saw the cuts on my wrists, and I'm pretty sure she was smart enough to assume that I did that to myself. But after that, it was actually me who asked for them to cut my hours because I was getting really stressed out with working the job and everything. Plus, a lot of other depressing stuff happened that year. I had one friend who passed away from a meth overdose. I don't do drugs myself, but it was in November of 2013. My Sims 2 slasher movie, Body Count House. If you watch the end credits, it even says in memory of Barry, who passed away in 2013. But I can't really talk about that because it's too sad. But the thing is, with suicide, it's never just because of one reason. Because I've had some people online tell me, oh, you were going to kill yourself just because you hated your job so much. I mean, that was a major tipping point, but suicide is never just because of one reason. And after that, they kept cutting my hours, and I was happy about that, but they weren't really getting cut enough. And ironically, they weren't getting cut enough. My wrist was definitely getting cut a lot by myself.
I was also really sad that summer because my pet guinea pigs passed away in summer of 2014. This is a video of me and them. In this video, you can actually see the cuts on my wrist right here. I remember when I posted that on YouTube back then, people started commenting on the cuts on my wrist, and I got self-conscious and then I took it down, which is pretty ironic now that I think of it, because when I was working my retail job, I always made sure everyone would see the cuts on my wrists because I was so angry and unhappy there. Now that I think of it, it was honestly not that I was self-conscious really, but more that I felt like YouTube was an escape from life and a happy place really. At that time, I didn't talk about depressing or sad stuff on my YouTube channel. That was really the only reason why. Things have definitely changed since then.
Eventually, my adoptive mother and my adoptive parents noticed the cuts on my wrist. And I started telling my adoptive parents, I hate this job, I'm unhappy, and if you guys make me keep it, I'm going to kill myself. And they didn't take that seriously at all. It just flew right over my adoptive mother's head. She was telling me that I was being something along the lines of manipulative brat or something like that. And that's something that BICTH always says. I mean, it's basically all her fault that this was all going on. I kept reading about Laura Branigan, and I got fixated on how she died in her sleep on August 26th of 2004. And it was summer of 2014. I mean, like, school was out. I just graduated high school. So I wasn't really doing anything in summer of 2014 except working the retail job, but I still hated it, really. And I started thinking, well, it's almost August of 2014 right now, and this is where my autism mind went. I started thinking I should die in my sleep in August of 2014, 10 years after Laura Branigan. And I want to say that I found it very fascinating whenever I would imagine that, me dying in my sleep on August 26th of 2014, and she died in her sleep on August 26th of 2004. And I kept hearing that song, Self Control by Laura Branigan. I kept listening to it over and over again, and I got obsessed with that song, Self Control by Laura Branigan. And I started listening to the lyrics, and the song has a very haunting tune to it. Let me play it for you guys right now. Gonna play some of it for you guys. That was some of the song Self Control by Laura Branigan, and I'm not sure how much of that song you guys were able to hear, or how well you guys were able to hear it, but it definitely does have a very haunting and gloomy tone to it. And I started listening to it more and more, and I started focusing on the lyrics, not really for the verses, but more for the chorus of the song. And when I posted about my 2014 suicide story, when I posted about this online before and talked about it online before, a lot of people said, oh yeah, it makes perfect sense that that song made you think of killing yourself because you hated the retail job, because your adoptive mother really was taking your self-control. You hated that job so much, but she was making you keep it. And like, I wasn't really thinking that at the time, but yeah, that definitely does make sense. I mean, yeah, what they said definitely does make sense now that I think of it. But the main part of that song that I was fixated on was the chorus of the song, and I'm going to play that for you guys right now. Okay, so that was the first part of the chorus. She sings, I live among the creatures of the night. I haven't got the will to try to fight against the new tomorrow, so I guess I'll just believe it that tomorrow never comes. Now, this is how my autism mind, I mean, I know that she didn't write the song about me committing suicide. I know that the song is not about me committing suicide in 2014, but this is how my autism mind kind of interpreted it, really. Like, I felt like that, the lyrics of that song, the way I took them, I live among the creatures of the night. I thought that after I killed myself in August of 2014, that I really will be living among the creatures of the night, because I'll actually be dead and I'll be a ghost, but I'll be free from my adoptive mother. I'll be free from that retail job forever, and I will be a ghost living among the creatures of the night. But also, I would be reunited with my biological uncle who passed away in 2012, who my YouTube channel is dedicated in memory of, my Uncle Romario, who I still really miss to this day. That's what that part of the song makes me think of. I live among the creatures of the night. I'm not alive anymore. I'm a ghost, so a creature of the night. So she sings, I live among the creatures of the night. I haven't got the will to try and fight. And I really didn't have the will to try and fight, because I was miserable and I wanted to be dead. So I wasn't gonna because I had people tell me, oh, suck it up, that's how life is. And I was like, no, I'm not happy here. So I didn't see any other way out at that time. So that's why I was gonna kill myself back when I was 18. That's why I tried killing myself back when I was 18. I haven't got the will to try and fight. Like, I was miserable, I was unhappy, and I was like, you know what, this is not what I want to stay alive for. I'm going to kill myself because of it. That's what I was thinking of back when I was 18 years old. I haven't got the will to try and fight. against a new tomorrow, so I guess I'll just believe that tomorrow never comes. Now, that, to me, the way I took that is, I guess I'll just believe it that tomorrow never comes. Well, if I would have killed myself back in 2014, like, yeah, tomorrow would have came, but definitely not for me. And if it did come from, well, I mean, that's a bit difficult to explain. Basically, what I mean by that is that I wouldn't be alive the next day. I mean, I was convinced that I would still exist, like as a ghost, because I don't believe. There's some people who think that when you die, you just cease to exist, but I was convinced that I would either become a ghost or I'd go to heaven. That's what I was thinking would happen if I committed suicide. Well, basically all the times I committed suicide, that's exactly what I thought. I mean, when all the times when I was planning on committing suicide, that's exactly what I thought. That I would either become a ghost or I would go to heaven. And to be completely honest with you, both of those options were fine with me because I've seen like American Horror Story. In American Horror Story, the ghosts aren't very they're not very happy at all, but I didn't think I'd be trapped in one location. I don't believe that happens, and even if that would happen, I would definitely believe that there would be a way out, which is pretty ironic thinking about that now. I mean eventually I did find a way out with the retail job and everything. I did find a way out, but we I don't get to that till a couple episodes into the deaths of Joe Winko. But yeah, that's what I was thinking. I guess I'll just believe it that tomorrow never comes. I won't be alive the next day. That's what that part of the song meant to me. Let me play more of it for you. Okay, so it's the chorus of the song that stuck with me the most. What she sings next in the next half of the chorus is she sings, "A safe night. I'm living in the forest of my dreams." And what I imagine then is that's the way I interpreted that is that's me going to heaven after I commit suicide. I'm living in the forest of my dreams, away from the retail job, away from my bossy adoptive mother, finally free at last, reunited with the soul of my biological uncle, and we're living in the forest of the dreams. And she also sings, "I know the night is not as it would seem." The way I interpreted that part of the course was that now I'm dead because I killed myself. Now I'm dead, and I know the night is not as it would seem because I'm a ghost now. I know where I'm at now after I die because you're never really sure what happens after you die, but now I know the night is not as it would seem. I would imagine that I would be able to see other people who have passed away and who have gone before me, and that's what it meant. I know the night is not as it would seem. And then I must believe in something, so I'll make myself believe it that this night will never go. So I must believe in something. I mean, that's pretty self-explanatory. I must believe that I'm going to heaven after I die because at that time I was really miserable and wanted to die. And I must believe in something, that there's something better out there. And that's what I was imagining after I killed myself in August of 2014, that I would go to heaven. So I'll make myself believe it, which is exactly what I ended up doing. I definitely made myself believe it, that this night will never go, and that the last night, because I was planning on doing it at night, the same night, August 26, 2014, exactly 10 years after Laura Branigan died in her sleep, because I wanted to die in my sleep just like her, that this night will never go. It will be my last night alive, and I'll be finally free and reunited with my biological uncle, finally free from my adoptive mother, because I really did not notice how bad of an adoptive mother my adoptive mom was. I mean, I guess like nowadays she kind of made up for it. She kind of made up for it, but she never admit how bad she was back then, really. And there's so much other stuff she did besides this, but that's what I believed. I'll make myself believe that this night will never go. So if you guys want to know exactly what ended up happening, fast forward to August 26th of 2014. Like if you go back and watch my old YouTube videos of me from year 2014, it looks like I'm happy. It looks like I'm not planning on killing myself at all. I mean, well, for YouTube, I was able to mask that very well. That was before I started talking about rough times in my personal life, before I started being so open about the difficult times in my personal life and everything like that. But nowadays, I just let you guys have it, really. Like at that time, because that's another thing about depression. People are usually very good at masking it. And I remember even back in 2014, I'm not sure if anyone who watched me back in 2014 remembers this. I remember I posted one video of me petting my guinea pigs, and it was after I cut my wrist really bad, after I was slicing my wrist. And I started getting comments on that video, and people were typing in, OMG, are you cutting your wrist? Please don't cut your wrists, because I didn't notice that I was actually recording that as I was petting my guinea pigs. And I immediately took it down and deleted it because I didn't want people to know about that for some reason. I'm not exactly sure why. I didn't want people, my YouTube followers, to know about that. So, getting back to August of 2014, August 26th, I was going to do it that night. Wasn't going to leave a note at all because I didn't want to explain anything to my adoptive mother. I hated my adoptive mother. And didn't even record like a final goodbye video for YouTube because at that time I never really connected with my fans, my YouTube followers that much back then. They were just watching my Sims 2 scary movies. I mean, yeah, I would post some video blogs of me talking about random stuff, my 2014 episodes of Joe Winko Talk, but I never really would get engaged with them very much, not nearly as much as I do or intend to nowadays.
The last video I would have posted on YouTube would have been my ice bucket challenge video that I filmed earlier that day. It's very chilling watching that video and seeing how well I was able to mask my depression. The way that I was going to die was by overdose, but I don't want to tell you guys exactly what I overdosed on that night. After I overdosed, I was laying in bed that night and listening to the song Self-Control by Laura Branigan on my iPod while I was waiting for it to take effect. That's what I thought would be the last song that I would have heard while I was alive. I was also wearing my red shorts and no shirt and my red pointy bandana so my uncle would recognize me in heaven.
And I remember getting sick after taking it, laying in bed, thinking I was going to die in my sleep. And I was excited to see my biological uncle again, and was excited to never have to go to the retail job again, was excited to leave behind everything forever. Because another thing you guys have to remember, I never really had any friends back then. I mean, back in 2014, I I was mainly just trying to find a lover and partner on Craigslist, and you guys all, oh my god, don't even get me started on how much of a failure that went. I mean, oh my gosh, I think I have a rough time finding a lover and partner now. Back then, oh my god, I don't even. Oh, that's more depressing than the story itself. But that's what I tried doing, and the next morning I woke up still feeling sick, but I knew I was alive. And apparently, the stuff I overdosed on didn't work, and I was disappointed in that, but I wasn't too surprised, really. I wasn't too surprised, but I was mad. And I still continued to think about suicide after that. I mean, not quite as much because I was out of high school and everything and didn't have to deal with that. And in 2014, I didn't start my college classes till 2015, so I was just dealing with the retail job that for from August, September, October, November, December of 2014 until my adoptive mom started making me do the college classes too. But that was my 2014 suicide story. But in the back of my mind, I knew that if it didn't work, I would eventually try it again. And eventually, I did come up with another plan to try it again. But I'm going to talk about that in a future episode of the deaths of Joe Winko. And yeah, so I ended up surviving. So I didn't die in my sleep in August of 2014. I would have been 18 years old forever. This is a picture of me back when I was 18. Well, here's a couple of pictures of me back when I was 18. All those pictures of me are from 2014, and I definitely know because I'm able to keep track of all those very well. And I would have been 18 years old forever. But here I am today. And I believe in parallel universes and alternate timelines. And I believe that somewhere in a parallel universe, that suicide attempt did actually work. And I did actually die in my sleep in 2014. And I'm not sure how I would have felt about that, how my spirit or how my ghost would have felt. I mean, if everything would have gone the way I thought it was going to, I was reunited with the ghost of my biological uncle, I I wouldn't have any regrets at all, really, because me and him would be in heaven with each other. But I mean, I don't really think much about that. I mean, it's an interesting story to think about. And and to be completely honest, I would have missed out on a lot of stuff, really, because eventually I did end up quitting the retail job. Not until quite a bit of time later, quite a bit of time later after this, but eventually I did end up quitting the retail job, and I don't have to deal with it anymore. But that's like a major thing. That's why I can't hold a job at all because I tried suicide multiple times. This was like the first major time, but there are other times after this that I'm going to talk about in future episodes of the deaths of Joe Winko. But yeah, that was my 2014 suicide story. I wanted to die in my sleep on August 26th of 2014, 10 years after Laura Branigan died in her sleep on August 26th of 2004. And another thing I need to point out, 4 is actually an unlucky number in Japan, because the same word that they use for 4 also they use for death. I didn't really know that at the time, but I didn't learn that fact till like much later that 4 in Japan is an unlucky number. There's literally buildings in Japan that don't have fourth floor, just like there's buildings here that don't have a 13th floor. But in Japan, 4 is an unlucky number because the same word that means 4 also means death in Japan. And it's kind of my phobia of the number 4 because of that. Luckily, however, I was able to work past that. I mean, over time, I was eventually able to work past it. But here I am to this day, still alive. And it is a sad story, really, that I was that miserable back then, but it's not exactly a sad story because I'm still alive and still here. I mean, unless you guys are sad that I didn't die on August 26th of 2014 and sad that I wasn't able to be 18 years old forever. I mean, God, when I think of being 18 years old forever, depends on the circumstances, really. But, I mean, if it meant being in heaven with my uncle forever, I mean, well, that always sounds good, because I miss my biological uncle. But that's basically it for this episode of The Deaths of Joe Winko. I hope you guys all liked this episode. It is gloomy, but I wanted to do a video about this. I'm not suicidal anymore, and I'm glad that I was able to pull myself out of that. I mean, but a lot more happened after this. This wasn't my last attempt. More happened after this, but I'm going to be talking about that in a future episode of The Deaths of Joe Winko. So let me know what you think of this video. Let me know what you thought of that song, Self Control by Laura Branigan, because as I said, a major point of my YouTube video is for you guys to get to know what goes on inside my autism mind and what happens within my life and everything. But also a major point is to start a conversation with you guys in the comments. So yeah, that's basically it for this episode of the deaths of Joe Winko. There's going to be more coming soon. There's going to be a lot more episodes of the deaths of Joe Winko coming soon. All of them are going to be about the times I either attempted suicide or was planning on committing suicide. And I hope you guys find them interesting, really. But the good part is I don't plan on killing myself right now or anymore, really. And glad I was able to work past that. You are able to work past it, and that's what counts. So don't forget to like, don't forget to comment, don't forget to subscribe, and don't forget to like me on Facebook and follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Tumblr. So that's basically it. Peace out, people.